Hello and welcome to my channel. In this tutorial we're gonna do this stitch. It's really thick, it's dense, this stitch. So if you like, it's like ribbon, something like that. And if you work this with a soft, thick yarn, let's say, it might be a little bit elastic. So for a scarf it's like you chain a lot, let's say 200, and you work that, and when you put, it's gonna be like with this V's. It's really nice. So if you want to make this, and the edges are quite straight, you see, it's really straight. Well, it might not be that comfortable to do this stitch unless you enjoy the slip stitch, which, to be honest, I don't enjoy that much. Okay, with this stitch you can chain any numbers of chain you want, odd, even, it doesn't matter. I chain here 10 just to make it short. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start to do the slip stitch. So we're gonna skip the first chain, and in the second chain we're gonna go in there and we're gonna pull up a loop, and then you're gonna take this loop and pass it through this one. That is called a slip stitch. We move to the next chain and we do the same. You pull up a loop and then you pull that loop through the other one. Well, I will suggest work this with a bigger crochet hook than the yarn recommends, and work loose because this is gonna get tight. So you move to the next chain and you do the same, slip stitch in each chain. Yeah, the first row is not going to be easy, you don't have much material to have a good grip on. So move to the next chain, pull up a loop and do the same, a slip stitch. So if you can leave this loop a little bit loose, that will help a lot next row. So pull up a loop and then do a slip stitch. You move to the next chain, pull up a loop and do a slip stitch. Yeah, if you leave this a little bit loose, you will be easy to pass the yarn when you do the slip stitch. So move to the next chain and do a slip stitch, and you move to the last chain and you do a slip stitch. Okay, now we're gonna chain one. You're always gonna chain one at the end, and you're gonna kind of leave the work like this, or you move it, you know, kind of like this. So after you turn, the first stitch is here, so you're gonna go into the back loop. We always gonna work only into the back loop. These ones here are the front loop, and in here are the back. So we're gonna move to the second, let's say, stitch, and you're gonna insert your hook into the back loop. That's why I said leave, and you pull the yarn through that loop, and then you do a slip stitch. Leave this loop loose. It's gonna be easy to pass, and the next row is gonna be easy to get into. So move to the next stitch, and through the back loop we're gonna do the same. We're gonna do a slip stitch. This stitch is worked only with slip stitch, and you always work through the back loop. That's it, only back loops. Move to the next stitch, through the back loop, pull up a loop and then do a slip stitch. Move to the next stitch, through the back loop, pull up a loop and then pass that one through the first one. And this is it. You're gonna do like this on and on and on until you finish the project. But it's important, this one, in the beginning and the end, it's important to move to the next stitch through the back loop and do a slip stitch. It's important the last and the first one to be worked loose, and you will see why. So you go to the next, you pull up a loop and do a slip stitch. Now the last stitch is here, the back loop it's this one here. So leave this one loose, because the last one, it's gonna be the one that is gonna give you the most trouble. It's gonna hide if it's not worked loose. So then you chain one, and again leave this one loose, and you have the loop here. If you turn like this, this is the front loop and this is the back, so you're gonna have to work a little bit, I don't know, the way you think it's comfortable for you. So the next stitch is here, we're gonna go in there through the back loop, pick up a loop, and then pass this loop through this one, and you're gonna do like this. Next stitch, if it's easy the way you think it's easy for you, you're gonna do it. So this, what you see here, is the front loop. The back loop is this one. So that's why in a way it's easy to do like this, or you work like this for a while, maybe a few rows, and then you can, it's gonna be easy to see it. So you move to the next stitch, back loop, slip stitch. Yeah, it's important this loop to be loose, otherwise you're gonna struggle getting into the back loop. And do a slip stitch, and again you move to the next stitch. It's right here, the back loop is here. You go underneath the back loop, pull up a loop, and then do a slip stitch. Next stitch. Yeah, if you don't work loose, working with slip stitch, it's getting tighter and tighter. So leave it loose. Next stitch, it's here, the back loop. So you go in there, wrap a loop, and pull this, the first loop through this one. And like I said, the last one is going to give you the most trouble. So the last one is here, the front loop it's this one, and the back loop it's this one here. So sometimes you're going to have to pick her up. That's why I said it's important to work the first and the last one loose. So leave it loose, this one, and go underneath that, you see. And especially if you work with the big crochet hook, it's gonna be a little bit difficult to put this fat head through the loop. So pull up a loop and do a slip stitch. Leave this loose, and again you're gonna have it like this for a time being. Yeah. So you chain one, and then the first, if you turn your work, the first stitch is here, this one, and in this the back loop is right there, and you go in there, pick up a loop, and then do a slip stitch. The next stitch is here, the back loop is right here. You go underneath that. Remember to leave this one loose, move to the next stitch, and we're always going to work through the back loop. And you chain one at the end. And this is worked only with a slip stitch, and you have that V shape. And it's nice for making a hat or a scarf or whatever you want to make. It's very dense and it's very thick in a way. It's thick enough. You keep doing like this. The next stitch is here, the back loop is right here. So you go in there and do a slip stitch. And now the last stitch is here. This is the front loop, this is the back. This one is going to give you the most trouble. You're going to have to, so you go in there, leave this loose, go in there, pick up a loop, and then do a slip stitch. Leave this loose, chain one, and if it's easy already for you to work only like this, work only like this. So the first stitch is this one here. The back loop is right here. So you go under that back loop, pick up a loop, and do a slip stitch. So you move to the next stitch, the back loop is right here. So you go in there and do a slip stitch. Well, it's very easy. This stitch is just, you have to remember always to work loose. Otherwise it gets so tight that you're gonna yell at the yarn trying to get in into the stitch or the last loop of the row. You keep doing like this. And the last stitch is here. So if you can go with no problem, but this head it's so thick that, you know, sometimes I can't, so I have to lift a little bit. So I go in there, pick up a loop, and then do a slip stitch, chain one, and it's gonna look like this. It's already, the V's are formed. So you turn your work, the first stitch is right here, the back loop is there. So you go into the back loop. Yeah, remember to leave this one loose. Okay, and do a slip stitch. And then you move to the next stitch. Yeah, until you get the hang of this this stitch, I think it's best to work with a thick yarn. It's very easy to see the stitches, and you can get in very easy. It's just the last one might give you some headaches. But if you always remember to work loose, you're not gonna have any issues. It's gonna be easy, even though you might have to lift her a little bit, the back loop. So even that is gonna be much easier. So the last stitch is here, the back loop it's this one here. So if you cannot lift her a little bit, and you go underneath that, pick up a loop, do a slip stitch, chain one, return your work, and then the first stitch is here, the back loop it's right here. So you go in there, pick up a loop, and do a slip stitch. I think I'm gonna do this row and then I'm gonna stop. So the next stitch is here, the back loop it's right here. So you go underneath that back loop, pick up a loop, and do a slip stitch. Yeah, not a big fan of this, you know, if you it's a pattern that you use once in a while, the slip stitch, that's fine, but to work only with the slip stitch, it's getting tiresome after a while, unless you work with a thick yarn and of course bigger crochet hook, and it's easy. And if you remember to work loose, then it's smooth sailing. Okay, the last stitch is here, the back loop is right here. There is no way I can go in there without struggling. So I did it. If not, you just try to pick her up. Do a slip stitch, chain one, and then the first stitch is here, the one that you have to go into, the back loop only, and you do a slip stitch. Yeah, the first one and the last one, it's important to work how you say, loose. Otherwise, well, the whole work should be loose, otherwise you struggle. And this is like, you know, it looks like this. It's like that ribbon. And you know, you can make a hat, a scarf, whatever you want to do. It's thick, especially if you work with thick yarn. This one is thick enough, so you can see it's thick, the edges. And the edges are quite straight. It's really nice to make some, you know, whatever, I don't know what you can do with this. Is very straight and it's elastic, especially this is acrylic, the yarn, so it's a little bit stiff. Once you put this into a stitch, it becomes stiff, rigid. But if you have a acrylic or cotton that it's soft, you just you know, you're gonna have a stitch that it's elastic. Yeah, but this is really thick for a stitch. And look at this, this is thick. So if you want to do something that, you know, for winter, that it's cold resistant or wind resistant, I think the stitch is nice. But you're gonna have to put up with the slip stitch, which I really don't enjoy doing that. So okay, this is it for this stitch. If you like to work with this, please give it a try. I'm sure you will enjoy it. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye bye.